The Houston Texans have agreed to a contract with Nico Collins. It is not a mega contract. I would call this a mega reasonable contract. It makes him the seventh highest paid receiver in the NFL. 3 years, $72.75 million, including $52 million in guaranteed, maximum value of $75 million. Again, it makes him the seventh highest paid wide receiver. He would have been a free agent at the end of this year, but he was in the upper echelon in a whole lot of categories of receivers this year. It's just that this was his first year doing it. This is a situation in which I think it was best for both parties. Nico Collins had spoken very reasonably about any upcoming negotiations back when he spoke to TJ Hushmanzada on his podcast round about the Super Bowl. And I think if you're a Texans fan, you can feel really good about the fact that they locked up a very good 25-year-old young receiving threat without having to break the bank. Amon-Ra St. Brown averaged more per year at $30 million per year. Plus Amon-Ra St. Brown, who was in the same draft class as Nico Collins, had a 4-year extension, same as what they did with Penei Sewell in Detroit as well. He got a 4-year extension. This is a 3-year extension, and Nico Collins has not produced as consistently and as long as Amon-Ra St. Brown has, but you can see where some of the natural excuses or explanations are there. Injuries, yes, were a concern in the first 2 years. Also, 2 different coordinators, non-CJ Stroud caliber quarterbacks, obviously, and this year everything just came together. And I would also give an assist on this to Laramie Tunsil, because I think Laramie Tunsil is kind of set a template for other players on this team to look at and say, okay, Laramie Tunsil signs these short-term deals, very lucrative short-term deals, plays well, and then gets an extension and gets another short-term deal. And with a huge amount of guaranteed money, $52 million guaranteed in this instance, it gives a guy like Nico Collins, who 2 and 3 years ago might have been wondering if he would even really make it in the NFL. It gives him that big-time contract as a non-first-round pick for the first time in his career. And teams love this. Teams love when you can take a guy who hasn't gotten that big contract yet, give him a bunch of guaranteed money, but it's a shorter-term deal, so you're not married to him and it doesn't crush you if injuries or some other lag in performance start to hurt the team. So this is a classic, as J.J. Watt would likely describe it. Both sides win. And I think both sides can feel comfortable about this. As a fan, you don't have to worry about this being crippling against the cap. And frankly, if Nico Collins plays the same way this year that he did last year, it'll really be a bargain. And that's the other thing. This is the way it should be. When you sign a guy early before he hits free agency, the give and take is supposed to be that, okay, that guy gets financial security. He doesn't have to worry about injuries, but he takes a bit of a discount over what he'd get on the open market. So I love this kind of re-signing. We know how this works. The cap is going up. Other guys are going to get paid. And there's a good chance that even if Nico Collins plays incredibly, he could end up next season not even being in the top 10 paid wide receivers, which is fine. So I feel really, really good about this. I think Nico Collins, when it comes to his injury history, he's talked about how he learned over the last couple of years to really change his off-field routine and how he handles things in season to really genuinely take care of his body. And I think it paid dividends this year. Obviously, he had the little blip of injury there. But B, I think also when you've got 3 really good wide receivers going into this season, at the very least, you've got 2 guys out of those 3 who aren't concerned at all about how their production might affect their contract at the end of the year. Tank Dell's not going to get a new contract for at least another couple years. Nico's taken care of now. Stephon Diggs is going to want to get fed the ball, and frankly, that's up to Bobby Slowick and Stephon Diggs and everything else. But in the short term, it removes at least one obstacle that might create disharmony. And if there's one thing I hate, I shall not abide disharmony. I'm just joking. I think disharmony is good. All good teams have some level of disharmony because you got a bunch of alphas out there who are competing like hell. And sometimes just like when dogs, you get a little too close together in a kennel, there might be some skirmishes here or there, but you can still have a hell of a kennel. One of my favorite things from this past season was going out to seek outside perspective on how people feel about CJ Stroud and Nico Collins. Robert Mays, who writes for The Athletic, watches a whole bunch of film, watches the entire league. This is what he had to say on his podcast, The Athletic Football Podcast. I've got a link below to the full episode.
Nico Collins is incredible.
Yeah.
Like what's so fun about the Nico Collins CJ Stroud pairing is that they're married. The marriage is perfect. They're perfect for each other because Stroud's ball placement on those throws over the middle of the field and Collins' ability to pluck them away from his body and continue moving upfield on those throws. He's a yak monster. He's a 6'4" yak monster because of the synergy he has with his quarterback on those plays.
He was third in yards per route run, and like that was not fake. Like,
no, he earned that.
It was not manufactured in a way that we might see like some other, players that have really high rates like that. It's so good.
Yak monster. So yak yards after catch. And we really saw that later in the season. And then especially in the playoffs and in that play-in game with the Colts, he was just bulldozing people on the sideline, seeking out contact. I thought he might get flagged for unsportsmanlike contact as he was hitting defensive backs that were kind of barely out of bounds. It was really cool to see because like when the rubber met the road in crunch time at the end of the season, he really showed up with the physicality that you need to win playoff games. You know, the one big stat that matters a lot and meets the eyeball test, especially during that stretch, was he led the league in broken tackles after the reception. So all of those things that Robert Mays and that was Dan Pizzuta from the 33rd team, the guy who spoke second. 100% agree with him. I also like the marriage analogy because I think sometimes there's this tendency, especially when you watch the first couple of years, where Nico Collins, who remember, was playing for two different head coaches, two different coordinators. It was not ideal, a non-CJ Stroud quarterback. And then when all of a sudden in a new scheme with CJ Stroud as his quarterback, this non-first round pick plays as well as he does. I think people in Houston may have been more skeptical of Nico Collins than people outside Houston because they've been through that. Or you people, you've been through that ordeal. I've been through that ordeal. I've seen it. But there is also that element where, it's not just so easy to go out and draft the receiver in the first, second, or third round and think like, oh, yeah, well, he'll just fit in. He'll be fine because of CJ. Half the guys drafted in the first round don't end up working out or even become full-time starters. So that's not that simple. The other is they do have a great relationship. The timing, the trust, the nonverbal communication, all of that stuff, it is really advanced for what a rookie quarterback and a third-year receiver did last year, and it got better as the year went along. And to use that marriage analogy, it's like when you look at a great marriage, you don't try to overthink like whether, it's mostly the husband that makes it a good marriage. I don't know. That's the wife. She could do better than him. Now they complete each other. They do the little heart thing. It's genuine and true love. You found that one. But I do want to see them build on what they had last year and, get that synergistic effect of also having Stephon Diggs in the building now too. So this feels really, really good. And as Robert Mays was talking about the connection over the middle, it reminded me of Ben Solak from The Ringer, who did a piece on CJ Stroud. I think this is just a few weeks into the season last year where people were starting to catch on to what CJ Stroud was doing. But he was so happy watching CJ Stroud film. And here's a play in which CJ was thrown to Nico Collins over the middle.
Dagger again, right? This time under center. So we're going to see him, and then Nico Collins running that big dig, working in the middle of the field. There's a fake. Land on the back foot. He's looking at this safety. Wants to make sure that this safety is going to run, right? You got eyes initially to the front side, but it's not actually the front side. This is such a cool freaking throw. Set. Here's Nico Collins. You have a problem right here. Problem's name is Zaire Franklin. You can't, you either have to throw this ball over him or find a way to throw it in this window here between these two defenders. Watch Stroud pull Franklin a little bit with his eyes. Look at Franklin. And then Stroud throws right behind him. Like if Franklin doesn't move here, this is a pick. It is a ballsy throw, man. And just rips it over the middle of the field. That's a good throw.
I love that kid. So, and that throw wasn't even the best example of it. That just happened to be the one that Ben Solak was breaking down. But I do think that the touch on those throws by CJ, but also Nico being nails with the timing in this offense, getting your landmarks right and hitting the windows exactly when you're supposed to be hitting the windows. They had a great relationship already. And I look forward to watching this young couple grow over the years. So really good news. I think for all parties involved, I'm not nervous about this extension whatsoever. If they had exceeded Amon-Ra St. Brown's contract, I'll be honest, I wouldn't have been overly distraught over it, but I would have been like, I don't know, we're starting to get about a little aggressive over here with the free and loose spending. I think it's perfect. And you know what, honestly, testament to Nico Collins. Look, I remember one baseball player once, I wish I could remember who it was, who'd signed an extension earlier than people thought he would. It was like like Alex Bregman early in his career type of extension. And he basically said, look, this is my financial philosophy. I try not to... I just didn't feel like turning down a life-changing fortune. I could have held out for a bigger life-changing fortune, but this was a pretty good life-changing. Life-changing is life-changing. You can worry about adding on and stacking on and going all Scrooge McDuck afterwards. So congratulations to Nico Collins, and congratulations to all of us. Those of us who are Texans fans or played for the Texans and or both, it's a fun feeling to extend some of the good feelings from this offseason. I'm Seth Payne, played for the Texans back in the day. I do this YouTube channel, and I'm also on Sports Radio 610 with Sean Pendergast from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday morning, and we also have our YouTube stream and on the Odyssey app as well. Thanks, everybody. If you like this content, please subscribe. It's a gift to yourself, and it's free, except having to watch some ads every now and then. Thanks, everybody.